I think you sound really good this time.
Okay. So
Well,
maybe
I
the
like the
headset secret
proximity.
sauce.
I like the proximity of the microphone. That way, even if you move around a little bit, we can definitely hear you directly.
Yeah, I talk with my hands, my whole body sometimes.
We have gotten used to that. That is
You
for sure.
you get animated, and we love it.
That the animation is passion, I think. All right, I got a clock here. I'll count us down in three, two, one. Hi, I'm Richard Randall, and welcome to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker, the owner of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. This is the weekly radio show that informs and educates you on how to buy or sell real estate with Colorado's Real Estate Authority, Barb Schlinker. Barb Schlinker is a retired Navy veteran. Barb is an author. Barb is also a pilot, and Barb and her team enjoy all that Colorado and the Front Range have to offer. Barb, always great to be talking with you. Now, we air Your Real Estate Voice every Saturday. If you can't listen to the entire show, it is always available on Barb's site, barbhasthebuyers.com, or go ahead and search the podcast platforms like iHeartRadio as well as others. Barb, what's in store for today's show?
Well, Richard, good morning. I'm pretty excited about today's show because we've got some interesting topics we're going to cover today. The first one is, will Colorado housing prices get cheaper in 2025? And I'm looking at statistics in the market and different neighborhoods throughout the week, every single week. And I think the big surprise to me is that we're not seeing a big surge in prices, but we're also not seeing a big drop in prices. So, the interest rates are staying steady. I think if you're a buyer right now, if you see the home that you got to have, get it, because the future is indicating that the rates are going to come down. And when that happens, this market's going to heat up like crazy. That's what you can take away from that segment. The next one is going to talk about sales that fall through. I don't think most sellers really expect a deal to fall through. However, the system is almost designed for it to happen a certain percentage. The buyer has all these opportunities to bail out of a contract. And we're going to go into detail about what those opportunities are and how a home seller can actually be prepared so that if it happens, they're ready to pivot to the next buyer. Not to worry, we're just going to get another one. The third thing we're going to talk about is, do you really need a real estate agent when you go buy a brand new home? Recently, I took over a property that was taken back in foreclosure. It's only 3.5 years old, and it has massive structural cracks. Now, I don't know what happened in the past, but that should not be happening because the state requires that these buildings be under warranty. But I have a feeling that that homeowner was undereducated, even though he signed the documents. They shove you hundreds of documents to sign when you're buying a house and don't go into a lot of detail about them. But it just was really frustrating to me that he didn't get the help that he needed and had to let the house go, which adversely affects his credit. So we're going to talk about what are the reasons why you need a real estate agent to help you when you buy a new home. And as always, we're going to talk about pricing. Pricing is absolutely critical. I believe the buying population is more educated about where a home should be priced than some real estate agents are. That's because they are actively looking in their area, in their price range, and they can see a good deal when it hits the market. So we're going to talk about how do you calculate a selling price for a house in Colorado. And as always, I love talking about my hot new listings. Richard?
Now, Barb, in this market, the interest rates are staying about the same. And even though it's prime selling season, not all homes are selling. What do you think about housing prices? Are they going to get cheaper in 2025?
Well, I can tell you that typically it looks a little bit like a bell curve as you go through the year in Colorado. Our prime selling season often becomes spring through summer and it drops off in the fall. However, homes do sell year round, and buyers know a good deal year round when it happens. So the question is, are the home prices going down or up? Well, if you look at the statistical data, and I don't just look at the monthly data in the MLS because I feel like it falls short in really giving us an idea on where the trends are in the market. But I use an alternative source that I pay for that's really excellent. That gives me updates every single weekday about what's trending in those areas. Another factor of this that really is a key point is interest rates. So if the interest rates drop, I predict right now, if the interest rates drop down to with a 5 in front of it, this market all along the front range is going to catch on fire. So if I was a buyer, I would not wait. If you see a house you've got to have, I would go ahead and buy it because it's relatively easy and sometimes very inexpensive to either buy the interest rate down or refinance the loan. I know the government loans you can refinance for rate and term, basically at almost no cost, no appraisal, not even a credit check. So I would definitely recommend that if you see the right home right now in this market, do not wait. You can make some adjustments about the payment issue. The rates have been fluctuating now for about 2 months between 6.5 and 7, sometimes a little over 7, up and down every day, every hour of the weekday. And generally, the government loans, FHA and VA, are about 0.5% less than conventional. Conventional is just under 7 right now, and VA, FHA are just under 6.2. So looking at the stats and the interest in general, it's going to move around all the time. All you need to do is just go ahead and get in the game, and then you're in a position where you can make that adjustment. So just to look at what the general areas are doing along the Front Range, like El Paso County is amazing. The median list price has been going up. Now it's up to 569. The number of available homes is well over 2,000. That's still light on the inventory. Fewer sellers are reducing their price right now, and the average days on market is dropping. Those are all good indications of a stronger seller's market than a buyer's market, but it's all about that house, that price, that home's condition, and we can help you get there. Douglas County has been relatively flat in the last week, but all those numbers kind of are playing out the same. Fewer people are reducing their price. Inventory is climbing. That part of it's seasonal, and it's showing a slight seller advantage. Same thing in Teller County. Places like Aurora is showing pretty much the same statistics. Castle Pines is showing a strong seller's market. Just so you know, the median list price in Castle Pines is over $1 million. And I find that interesting. A lot of the more what we consider high-end or affluent homes, those homes are actually selling a little bit more robustly than the lower price point, because I think a lot of those buyers are less influenced by tiny interest rate fluctuations. Highlands Ranch, little bit of fluctuation in the past 2 months, but it's still a strong seller's market. And we're seeing a seller's advantage in Littleton. Littleton, surprising to me, the median price is over 800,000. We just sold a fixer-upper in Littleton recently, and I was surprised. The after repair value of this older home that was kind of in rough condition was over 500,000. The only areas where we're seeing a little bit of weakness are Pueblo at this time, but I think in the summer that's definitely going to pick up. So in my view, the biggest mistake that buyers can make right now, if they're thinking of buying a home and they can't afford it, is to sit around and wait for the rates to drop or the prices to drop. I don't anticipate it's going to happen all along in the Front Range very much. You might see a few percentage points here and there. But if you look at areas like Florida, I just came back from a conference last week talking to agents in Florida, and they're really struggling. I mean, those prices are dropping by a good, I would say, 15-20%. We are not seeing that here. Colorado definitely is holding its value. So if you're planning to live in a home for the next 3 to 5 years, I definitely would consider buying instead of renting at this time. And, all you have to do really, if you're planning to sell a home, is plan a simple strategy to get the home sold in this market. It's not that difficult. We're going to talk about some of the keys to actually be the best home on the block, to get offers right out of the gate and not wait that 75 or 80 days to get your home sold. And that way, you can be considered the best deal on the market and you'll attract the right buyers. Just last weekend, Richard, we had an open house. We had 35 people attend the day before Easter. And we went on to process 3 different offers until they found the right offer, and it went under contract over asking price. That is still possible in this market if you hire somebody that knows what they're doing. Number one is hire somebody that knows how to market and present the home so it looks attractive. And number two is to make sure it's priced realistically, not optimistically. So if you are thinking of making a move, give us a call, 719-301-3900, or go to barbhasthebuyers.com. Richard?
We're here talking with Barb Schlinker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, and you can always reach Barb at 719-301-3900. Now, Barb, we're talking about how to sell your home for the most money. What are some things that increase a home's value?
Well, condition is the number one thing, Richard. Most buyers want a move-in ready home, and those typically will sell for a premium. However, there are homes that will sell for a premium that are not move-in ready, and that's all about the correct pricing strategy. According to the National Association of Realtors, the average buyer, about 40% of them, will not go for a home that needs work. However, if it's priced right and it's in the neighborhood that they want to be in, they might just do it. So the things that you can control are take care of easy deferred maintenance, because buyers will not consider a home if it needs obvious routine maintenance. Things like, the carpet's really bad and worn, furnace, water heater, all those kind of things. And it's very important that you make sure the photos of the home are presented very well. Pricing is a key thing, and I really feel like the buyers know more about pricing than real estate agents do, and that's what makes them show up. If they see a good deal that's presented online first, they are going to come. So pricing will either repel buyers or it will attract buyers. I'm not saying underprice a home. I'm just saying price it to attract the most amount of buyers in that price range, and we can help you do that. So if you are thinking of making a move, give us a call, 719-301-3900, or go to barbhasthebuyers.com. Richard?
You're listening to Barb Schlinker with Your Real Estate Voice. Barb's the host of the program, also the owner, proprietor of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. And you can always reach Barb at 719-301-3900. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we're going to be discussing, can a house sale that is pending actually fall through and what to do to avoid that happening? Stay tuned for Barb Schlinker. Right?
Right.
Okay.
It
It
looks cool. You got the flag in the background. It's pretty neat.
Let me run to the men's room for just a second, if I could, real quick.
Yeah, we're still trying to get it all dialed in, but I think it's going to come out good.
Cool.
And I don't know if you can use any of his video on your when you post it online.
Sure.
Feel free to do so. I know that Richard wouldn't mind.
How do I get his video?
From this piece, if you click on,
So if I
because it
stop
records
share
all of
screen,
it. Yeah.
I'll have to ask Griff. Griff, are you on?
He might not be, since we already started.
He's on. He's just muted right now.
Yeah, but I mean, he's probably working on other things.
Segment
1. Save you.
Hmm. I just posted on Slack, see what he says. I'm going to be talking about this. DJ, can you see this image? I think you got it.
Oh no.
So this inspector last Friday when it was cold, turned the furnace off during the inspection. And then he was instructed not to pull toilets without a plumber. So he pulls over the shower, the bath mat, probably to protect his knees. And he pulled the toilet without permission. And you can see the bath
Maybe
mat
try to
when
put it back wrong.
yeah, he resealed it and the bath mat got stuck under the toilet.
That's not sealed.
No, of course not. And of course, then when they sent the inspection objection, they're claiming the toilet was not installed and the seal was broken. I'm just like, you can't make this up. The seller sent me this picture last night. I'm like, can I use that on my show? He goes, yeah. He was not happy. But can you see how that little mat stuck underneath the front rim of the toilet? What a dummy. I like making fun of him. That's what I deal with every day.
I was talking with David about this earlier today. If you treat something as if it were your own, then there's a different standard of care. And if that person had just treated that bathroom and that toilet as if it were his own, her own, or a lot of times I'll say, you know what, consider it to be your son or your daughter's house, whatever. You do even better job for them. But if it's just some nebulous other person, whatever, people don't care half the time on that stuff.
Yeah. And then when they get called out, that was the other thing. You remember how cold it was Friday?
Yes. Yeah.
He gets there for the inspection, turns the furnace off. I don't know why. It's cold as all get out. When the seller gets home, it's 45 degrees in the house.
Oh my God.
And he says, what in the heck is going on? He goes, I can't figure out how to turn the furnace on. He goes, we never turn it off. It's always set on auto.
The way it hangs, the field has to be to the left. I'm sorry.
Right.
Well, the coldest we've ever had it in our house is 65. And that was by mistake. We have an mother-in-law living with us, and she is cold all of the time. So if you left it up to her, the house would be like 78 degrees, right? So we'll sneak over and put it on cool just to try to get it down to like 76 or 74. Every now and then you kind of forget what you did, and then overnight it continues to keep cooling it instead of warming it. And then you come down and look at it, and it's like 65 degrees in the morning, which is freezing, and it takes forever to get the house warmed up again.
Right.
But I have to tell you, 65 is miserable. I can't. 45, I guess you wouldn't be freezing pipes at that point, but
no, but 45 is borderline.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think you don't normally see homes, even if the heat has been off for a while, get that cold, so it was only off for a couple hours, but anyway, just idiots. And then of course, the thing that bugged me the most is he wouldn't take responsibility for it.
No, I guess it doesn't. It does. Yeah. Well, so how do you not take responsibility for that?
He claims he found it that way and he left the house like he found it.
He didn't find it like that. That's
Well, even
bullshit.
if even if he did, it was freezing outside. Would you really leave a house like that?
You know what? I mean, and especially even if you showed up and it was screwed up when you showed up, are you going to just leave it that way so that something goes wrong with it? Or are you just going to do, like I said, treat it like it's yours or like it's your mom's or your daughter's or something like that? That
Yeah,
that
drives
is
me
not
nuts.
asking too much. That is not, I mean, and who knows how much lower it would go after 45 degrees, right?
Yeah, what if they were out of town?
Yeah.
You know, it was
Yeah.
cold that night. I went to Pilates the next morning in that area. It was still in like the 20s, I believe, when I got there. So that
And
morning.
well, and I remember that too because we had a bunch of snow down
Right.
south. In fact, we had about like 6 inches. And then there were other places that didn't get much snow, but they were cold. And that, it's one thing to have snow, but you're still relatively warm,
Right.
whether you have snow or not. And what was the temperature in the 20s outside? Is that what you had?
Yeah,
Yeah,
20s that night, 20s. Even during the day. It was cool. So
that is, that's not acceptable. Let's put it that way. Yes, yes. It's much, much, much better. All right. I've got a clock here. And I've finally found the golden clock of all clocks. So I'm very thrilled with it. Let's see. I'm ready to go. Barb, how about you?
yeah, can't wait for
David?
this one.
I'll count us down in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker, the weekly radio show that informs and educates you on how to buy or sell real estate with Barb Schlinker, the owner broker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. Now, Barb, many home sellers think that once they accept an offer, it's a done deal and they can start packing. Is that true, or should home sellers move forward with a little bit more caution?
Well, a lot of my clients, Richard, like to get ahead of the game and have a plan and execute it. And moving is a massive project. So it's not like you can just accept a contract and be expected to move in 30 days and do nothing. You have to do something because for most people, even if the house is halfway, cleared out, it's a project. And so a lot of sellers are very, very happy when they accept a contract, and in their minds, we're good to go. We're moving towards the finish line. And it was funny. I explained it to one of my clients a few years ago. I was presenting, fortunately, several offers to him. And I explained we had a cash offer on the table that was a little bit less than the offer that was getting financing. And he goes, so exactly how does this work? Because they don't do it. They've been in the house 35 years. And I said, well, you accept a contract, then the buyer does an inspection, then they ask for stuff. Hopefully you reach agreement on what happens on the inspection. Then the appraiser comes in. As long as the appraiser thinks that the home is worth the agreed upon sales price, then you're moving forward in the process. But that happens next, maybe 2, 3 weeks into the process. So you could be a week before closing and still not know if the deal is going to go through. So it's very frustrating for sellers. And he looked at me, he's an ex-Marine, and he goes, seems to me you're just wallowing around in the mud until it's over. Is that right? I just said, that's exactly right.
Oh my
And
God.
so he took the cash deal because that at least cut out maybe a week to a week and a half of the process. That way he knew that once they passed inspection, okay, we're good to go. We can pack up our big house, get things out of here because the house is no longer going to look show ready once you've started that process. So I think, people assume they can start packing and just take the house apart as soon as they accept a contract. But it's better to try to get ahead of as much of that as possible before you go on the market. Like get rid of any furniture you're not going to take with you, declutter as much as possible, pack up the seasonal things that you're not going to use that time of year. Have that ready to go before you go on the market. And that way, when you do accept a contract, then you just have a finite amount of things that you need to move. and you kind of got to plan on moving that stuff, in most cases, about a week to 10 days prior to closing. So the most common failures of contracts are inspections. So the way the state has set up the contracts in Colorado, basically, a seller accepts a contract, and then the buyer has all these opportunities to bail out, no harm, no foul, and get their earnest money back all the way until the end, unfortunately, but that's true. So how does the seller know? How do they have the certainty that they're actually going to go and move out and not and still have their house? That could happen. It has happened. But the best thing that you can do is just plan ahead for it as much as possible. But I would say definitely don't start packing before the inspection, because that's probably the most common situation where a deal is going to fall apart. And there's lots of things to consider with inspections. There are so many different things that could be scrutinized by a buyer. And I just got a contract termination last night where the buyer said, and this house is perfection. I was pretty shocked that they said they were terminating over inspection. I said, so why are you terminating? What's wrong with the house? The house is perfect. And the answer was, well, I'll tell you as soon as you release my earnest money. I'm like, don't play extortion with me. Some of the stuff these agents do are just insane. But anyway, what I had to explain to the seller is the buyer could walk away if they don't like the paint color. They could walk away if they don't like their loan. They could walk away if they don't like title work. They could walk away if they don't like the appraisal. I mean, they basically have a get out of jail free card. They will have to spend money on their own inspection and their own appraisal, but there's lots of opportunities for the buyer to walk and none for the seller to get out, unless you don't reach agreement on inspection and unless it doesn't appraise and the seller is unwilling to lower their price to match the appraisal. So it's very frustrating for sellers when that happens, because they've kind of in their mind going, okay, I got this done. Now I'm working on moving. I'm getting insurance. I'm changing utilities. I'm getting all these things underway. Even though the contract says the home is sold as is, where is, with all its faults, the buyers still tend to ask for, quote, broken stuff to be resolved. Okay. Some of them will ask for upgrades, which is absolutely unreasonable. I just had one that asked for all new plumbing, and that buyer walked away over that. But basically, there's a wide opportunity for the buyer to do all the due diligence that they want, and they can still walk away later in the process. That's why I'm saying wait to completely pack or get ahead of your packing so that you have very little things to move at the end. And we have a hard time, I have a system for it. It happens less frequently, actually, than it would, than you think. It was probably 90% of homes would go through once they got a contract. It might be a little bit less than that right now. And there are various reasons. I had one fall apart because the buyer lost his job. Well, sorry, there's nothing you can do about that. But if it's, quote, an inspection that's not explained, and there's nothing condition-wise wrong with the house, to me, that indicates that I wasn't being told the truth, that in factuality, it was probably the buyer changed their mind for whatever reason. So I have systems for it to kind of protect the seller, to make sure some crazy stuff doesn't happen on inspections. Like I tell them, okay, you got to give 2 days notice for the inspection. You can't just give out the combo to the inspector, let them open the door and have at the house for 3 hours going over systems without a licensed escort. And unfortunately, there is no license in the state of Colorado to be an inspector. I could be an inspector, and I'm very scary with the tool in my hand unless it's a pen. So I can tell you that I've seen a lot of problems happen during inspection. So I've tried to get ahead of that by creating what I call this policy that I send out to the buyer's agents every time we have an inspection, and let them know these are my rules. These are the rules that my seller has directed me to institute according to what has happened in the past. Number one, you have to escort your buyer. We're not going to just let an unlicensed, unqualified Joe Billy Bob inspector in the house for hours and hours without, quote, an escort. Now, the question is the escort paying attention? That's a whole nother story that probably isn't happening. I've had agents actually tell me, well, going to an inspection is a complete waste of my time. And I'm like, seriously, you're spending 15 minutes to write a contract, maybe 2 hours to go to an inspection. Then you do a walkthrough and appraisal. So you spend all of 4 or 5 hours. You make thousands and thousands of dollars, and it's a waste of your time. I mean, who doesn't want this gig? I was trying to explain it to my Marine son, and he goes, wow. So I have a feeling he might be waiting in real estate at the end of the day after he gets out of the Marines. But anyway, so what recently happened on a very cold day, we had an inspector come into the house. Last week, Friday, it was freezing. Okay. He turned off the furnace off, right? And didn't turn it back on. So when the seller gets home, I get this panicky call with the seller saying, my house is 45 degrees. He turned off the furnace. I've never turned off the furnace because it's always on auto. I don't know how to get it turned back on. So I'm calling the agent. Of course, you know, the inspector won't take responsibility for it. He goes, no, I found it that way. Then last night, when we get the inspection objection, the objection said that the basement toilet was removed. It was missing and it wasn't properly sealed. Now, my instructions are, if you have to pull a toilet to check a sewer line, you need to bring in a licensed plumber. Well, obviously that did not happen. And so what the seller found last night when he went down to look at the toilet is the toilet obviously had been removed because the inspector took the bath mat, drug it over to put it under his knees. And when he put the toilet back on, the bath mat got stuck underneath of it. It wasn't like that before. And I'm just like, oh my God, you know, so they're not qualified to do it. They don't read the directions that I give them. And it's reaching a point for me where I just have to say, all right, we're done with this. We're going to have to babysit everything you guys do because you're not qualified to do this job. Anyway, that's the world according to Barb. And so I try to make the process as easy as possible and let the sellers know in advance that we could have some problems on the inspection. So do not start packing until that's over. My name is Barb Schlinker. I'm the broker owner of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty and the host of this show. And we're talking about house sales and whether or not they fall through, how often that happens, and what you can do to protect yourself. And that's what we're going to talk about coming back after the break. Richard?
You're listening to Barb Schlinker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. And if you're interested in selling your home and you want to talk to Barb, give her a call, 719-301-3900. And we're talking, Barb, about how a seller can prepare their move just in case their home sale falls through. What else can they do?
Well, I would say the first thing you would do, even before you go on the market, is pack up the things that you're not going to need. Get rid of, repurpose, resell, whatever the things that you're not going to take with you. Declutter as much as possible. And I would hit every room in the house and get ahead of that. That way, when it is time to move, even if you have a shorter time period when you're absolutely certain it's going through, you don't have as much to deal with. It's not as bad as eating an elephant, because moving is like eating an elephant. It's a big project. It's not just moving the stuff. It's making sure the house is clean, make sure the utilities are done, this and that. There's so much to do. So I would definitely hold off on packing until after the inspection. Some deals will fall out over an appraisal, but that is less common. So I think once you get past an inspection, you're pretty certain it's going to go through. And then we have some systems like our certified pre-owned home program that can get you ahead of it. I have a house under contract right now that was built in 1962. And the seller elected to do the certified pre-owned home. They got a pre-inspection. They were ahead of the problem, and their inspection came out perfectly clean. And that means they're going to the finish line. So if you have any questions or you're thinking of making a move, give us a call. We're a company that has your back at 719-301-3900. We have thousands of buyers, and our buyers in waiting. We even have cash buyers if you don't want to deal with the traditional sales process. Call us at 719-301-3900 or go to barbhasthebuyers.com. Richard?
Again, you're listening to Barb Schlinker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. And if you are thinking of making a move, call Barb at 719 301 3900 or visit barbhasthebuyers.com. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll be discussing, do you need a real estate agent to help you buy a new build home? Stay tuned for that. That is one of the things when I tell people about that, almost I'm trying to think if there's ever been anybody who said, oh, well, no, I assume that. I think everybody assumes that you don't do that. And when I tell them that, well, you can do that and she can help you strike a better deal, they're like, oh, really? Well, yeah. Oh, really? All right. Just a second. Okay. David, you good? David's good. Barb's good. I'm good. I'll count us down in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker, the weekly radio show that informs and educates you on how to buy or sell real estate with Barb Schlinker, the owner broker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. Now, Barb, I've heard you talk about how new homes are doing well with their sales right now, but many people don't think that they need an agent to buy a new home. Why should a home buyer consider getting an agent like you to help them buy that new home?
Well, Richard, the builders do everything for the buyer. They give them huge incentives. They try to make the process easy for them. If they're building from the ground up, they have a process that they have them go through where they pick their colors and all that. But at the end of the day, there are some landmines that a home buyer should be very concerned about. First of all, they don't have these state real estate contracts for new construction. So the builder contracts are all designed to protect the home seller and not the buyer. And they have a lot of weasel clause to get themselves out of it. And there are some contracts where they would actually tell the home seller, or I'm sorry, there are some contracts where the buyer's earnest deposit is non-refundable after a certain point, even if they find defects with the home that they're building. So the typical process of a buyer finding a new home, and when I was a kid, I used to love to go to model homes. It's fun, but they are beautiful. You go to a model home, it's so pretty, it's decorated perfectly, there's no clutter, it smells good, it looks good. You feel like you could just drop in, move your stuff in, and get on with your life, right? And they're very, very good at this. So they get the buyers to fall in love. Then they'll say, oh, well, I have one that's, going to be ready in a month or two. And let me take you over to that house. Let me show it to you. Or I have one that has a premium lot that's going to have views if you can wait a few months. So they really get the buyer involved with everything about the home, and they get them to sign on the dotted line. But those contracts are not the state approved contracts. And there's some things in there that could be landmines for you. And usually there's a deadline that the buyer has to worry about. Like what they'll do is they'll say, oh, well, if you really want this house, you better show up, and sign the contract Saturday at 9 o'clock, because I have another one coming in right after you and they want that lot too. That they'll play that game as well. So you have to be prepared for that kind of takeaway strategy to get you in to sign the contract. That's one thing that they do that you should be careful and look out for. And builders will work with you if you have a house to sell in some cases, not always. There are some that won't even, dig a hole until your home is sold. I've had buyers that had to sell their home, get an apartment, wait until their home is built, and then move in. So you really want to know whether or not that's a possibility and whether or not you're going to get your earnest money back if something falls through on the sale of your home. But I really feel like if you're going to work with a builder, you're dealing directly with the seller. So you're effectively denied representation. Now, I'll be honest with you. There are some agents that are very transactional. They're all about the money. They show up and smile with their business card when the contract is written, and then they're gone until closing day, and then they show up and smile and collect their check. There are people like that, unfortunately, and I don't recommend hiring an agent like that because the builders are paying their fee. However, there are some that are really good and that are going to show up every step of the way of the process and have your back. I just helped a couple buy a new construction home. And one of the things that they were noticing as their home was being built is some of the contractors were in there and they'd have, leftover cheeseburgers and beer cans, even marijuana cigarettes that they were smoking out on the back patio while they were building the house. But they would literally leave these food wrappers in between the framing and then be getting ready to drywall over it. So you got to pay attention to what's going on, especially if you're present. And if you're not present, your agent really should be doing that. But builders will tell you, you don't need an agent. But I think you should, if you're getting I think you should have an agent if you have an agent that really understands contracts and can read it and protect your back. So some of the things that a buyer should be asking are, what's included with this home? Typically, builders will just include the basics, the stove, the microwave, the dishwasher, but maybe not the refrigerator. That's personal property. Likely not the washer and dryer. Likely not the garage door opener. You would think you need that, right? Some do and some don't cover landscaping. Some cover the front, some cover the back. Some of these builders or some of the communities require that you put up a big chunk of money until your landscaping is finished. So you need to be educated about what the whole process is. And don't hesitate to ask for stuff, ask for a discount, ask for the builder to pay your closing costs. Now, the builders are offering really big incentives, but you can negotiate with them sometimes. And if a consumer doesn't know how to do that, a good agent will. You can also ask them to, if let's say your perfect home is already under contract. I helped a buyer one time. I'll never forget. It was like the coldest day in the winter, a couple Februarys ago. And I was showing this buyer, and it was so cold that most of the model home offices shut down on a Saturday. But we're out there crawling through these framed up homes, looking at them. And we saw this one that was under contract that was perfect for them. So, but it was under contract. So we went back to the builder the next day when they came back to work and said, hey, what about that house? And he goes, you know what? That deal's falling apart. So my buyer was able to slip right in and get that. So there's a whole bunch of homes that the builders have that are not on the market. They're not advertised on the market. And the only way a buyer would know that they're available is if either they or the agent go to ask. And if you have a house to sell, that's really important. You want to know whether or not your deposit is refundable. And not all homes for sure are sold using the MLS. They're not all going to be there. So a really good agent's going to go and kind of bird dog for you and go, hey, what about this one? This one's about to come back on the market. One of my agents actually had her daughter buy a brand new home that was kind of like a builder special that fell out, and she got a fantastic deal. So my name is Barb Schlinker. And what we're talking about is whether or not you need a real estate agent when you buy a brand new build home. And we do this all the time. We can, first of all, help people with a house to sell to get a firm contract on their home so they can buy that new construction home without a sale contingency. That's one of the things that we could do that other agents cannot do. And there's some other landmines that we're going to talk about in the next segment. When we come back, we're going to talk about how a buyer can do their due diligence and know that they're making the right decision about a new home. Richard?
talking with Barb Schlinker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. The program is Your Real Estate Voice. Barb is the host, and she is your real estate voice. You can reach her at 719-301-3900 or visit barbhasthebuyers.com. Now, Barb, when people buy new homes, they're assuming that it's like a new car, under warranty, bumper to bumper. Is that true?
Kind of. Theoretically, it is. You have a deadline. Each builder has a process on how it works. But you want to make sure that you get an extra pair of eyes to help you, especially as they're building on the final walkthrough in the first year before that first year is up when you buy a home. Typically, they are under warranty, and most of the time the builders are rally and fix any defects right before closing, but some things could come up from right after closing for the first year. I just unfortunately took over a house that was taken back in foreclosure. It's only 3.5 years old, and it has these massive cracks in the drywall in the ceiling, like separating, not just settlement cracks, but separating. And at first I thought, well, maybe there's a roof leak. The house is too young to have structural cracks, right? And so I had a roofer go out there. He goes, no, that's structure. And he sent me some other pictures where inside in the basement, the drywall was curling, the trim was separating away. That had to show up within the first year. But it's possible that the homeowner really didn't know what to do and maybe didn't have representation of an agent to protect him if something went sideways. And I went up on AI to figure out, okay, if you're selling a home that has structural problems, how much less would a buyer pay if it has structural problems? It was a lot. It was like on average $90,000. It was an extraordinary number. And I was like, whoa. So that tells me that the typical live in the home buyer probably wouldn't buy it. It would be a fix and flip buyer. But the good news is the state requires that homes have a structural warranty and you need to file a claim. So I did call them to file a claim, even though we're not the first owner, it still applies. And I didn't like the answers that I got. I got this email back and it had a bunch of weasel clauses in it, like, well, only if it severely adversely affects, the lifestyle of the buyer. And I'm like, seriously? It's a 3-year-old house. It's cracking apart and you're asking me these questions. So we'll see. I don't know. It hasn't played out yet, but I'm trying to ask the VA to file a claim just to see what will happen in the process and whether or not they're going to honor it, because it effectively wipes out a lot of value of that home. It makes it unsellable. And that probably poor military guy didn't know what to do and just let it go. It's really sad. So you want to make sure you have somebody that fights for you, that you ask the right questions, because these builder contracts are all on their side and we know exactly how to do that. My name is Barb Schlinker. I'm the broker owner of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty and the host of this show. And we help people buy and sell homes all the time. So if you are thinking of making a move, whether you're buying a new home and you have a house to sell, or you're just going to buy a new home, give us a call at 719-301-3900 or go to barbhasthebuyers.com. Richard?
We're here talking with Barb Schlinker on Your Real Estate Voice, and Barb Schlinker, host of the program. She is your real estate voice. And if you're thinking of selling your home, you want to get the most amount of money, then you call Barb at 719-301-3900 or visit barbhasthebuyers.com. A short break. When we come back, we'll be discussing how to calculate the selling price of a house here in Colorado, plus Barb's hot new listings. You don't want to miss them. That's what I had. Am I missing something in there?
What's that?
Because I lost my clock. I wasn't sure where we're at time wise.
Yeah, we're just over 12.
Okay. All right.
Did I explain that well enough or was I just rambling on?
I thought it was perfect.
Oh, thank you. I've always got more to say, but I thought, no, I won't say that.
I think that actually, Barb, is a big part of the show, is that you've got the ability of taking things that I think otherwise would be kind of complicated, and you break them down and are able to explain them to people who aren't experts and they're not in the business, but they can understand because you've explained it so well. I honestly don't think I could do that. If you gave me the script and said, well, break this down so the average person can understand what I'm talking about, I could not do what you're doing. So that's a compliment.
Thank you.
All right. I got a new clock. I am set to go and count us down in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker. This is the weekly radio show that informs and educates you on how to buy or sell real estate with Barb Schlinker, the owner broker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. Now, Barb, a lot of people look at those automated valuations that they see on Zillow or their neighbor's asking price to help determine the value and the worth of their own home, especially now that it's taking longer to sell a home. How does a home seller decide what price to set when they are selling their home?
Well, one thing that I have noticed, Richard, is that most sellers in general want the most amount of money, which makes total sense to me. Okay. However, it's not the seller, it's not similar sales, it's not any of those things that decides what a home will sell for. There's a lot of factors that play into it. And it's absolutely critical that you price a home correctly out of the gate, especially if you do it within the first 30 days, it's absolutely critical that you get that right. Because as time goes on, and that's a big mistake that a lot of people make, is they overprice a home for what I call negotiating room, and then slowly walk the price down. And in the end, the listing gets stale. People think there's something wrong with the house. They can see all these tech companies will show online how long it's been sitting on the market, and they end up netting less money. I helped a home seller last year that had hired their property management company to sell their home. And the property management company really didn't specialize in helping people sell their homes. It was more a manager. So he put the house on the market, way overpriced it, extraordinary, probably almost 100,000 over what the market would bring, and then slowly walk the price down. And to top it all off, he also had terrible marketing pictures. So this was a military member. He was overseas at the time he put this house on the market, really needed his property to sell. The seller went to the trouble to pay for staging. He brought in staging furniture. Now that's real expensive. It could cost $1,000 to $3,000 a month to have staging furniture inserted into your home to help it sell. It still didn't sell. And the reason it didn't sell were two things. It was still priced too high, and the photos were still awful. The agent never upgraded the photos, didn't highlight the best features. He used his smartphone to take pictures. It looked terrible. So he finally gave up and called me. And right away, we got better pictures. We put it right back on the market. We had 40 people attend the open house. We got an offer the first weekend. I suggested the seller to let that offer go by because it was contingent on a home selling. And in my opinion, the home that they had on the market trying to sell was overpriced, and he was going to spend more months waiting for that home to sell. I said, look, if you had 40 people show up now that we have the marketing and the pricing in place and you're getting offers, you're going to get more offers. So just stay the course. And sure enough, 9 days later, we got a full price offer and it closed in 2 weeks. So there's a way to do it and there's a way not to do it. And it's kind of more of an art than a science. You can't necessarily look back on what is sold that's a similar house in the last few months and say, my house must be worth that much. There's a lot of factors that go into it, some of which are not obvious, like current buyer trends. Are buyers really coming out of the woodwork or are they not? And the market's going to tell you right away if you messed it up, because if you priced it too high, you're going to get no showings or very few showings. If you priced it what I call too low, there are going to be some buyers that come in and make a lowball offer. But I would say in general, most buyers have a really good idea of whether or not a home is priced correctly. Just last weekend, we put a home on the market. Now, similar recent sales were over 400,000, right? But this home was not completely remodeled. It had fresh carpet. It was in good shape. It was on a nice lot, overall in good condition, but not complete remodel, right? So the seller decided to price it very realistically. And at the open house, we actually got an offer over asking price before we even started showing, but the seller opted not to take that because the date that he wanted to close was in 2 weeks, and he's got kids in school, and he's like, logistically, I can't do that. So we went ahead and had the open house. That one we had 35 people show up. We ended up fielding 3 different offers, and we finally got a great offer at full asking price, close when they want and deliver possession when they want. So it's all about good communication, good planning, and pricing it right. So buyers, in my view, are pickier than ever. They don't necessarily need to have everything remodeled, but for sure, things like flooring, any deferred maintenance needs to get taken care of so that they can just visualize the buyer being able to move in, drop their stuff, get on with their lives. They may not have a remodeled home. Like I have one closing this month where it was built in 1963, I think. And it's the kitchen is vintage, but it's really cute. The bathrooms, one of the bathrooms has been updated. It has gorgeous hardwood floors, but it's in good condition. They did upgrade the things that are important: windows, furnace, water heater, roof, paint. All those things are good, and everything's in good working condition. And the seller chose to price it right. So the seller got multiple offers, and it's selling for 15,000 over asking price. That is the best case scenario. If all the stars align and you make it look attractive to the buyers. All homes don't have to look like HGTV, even though people think they have to follow that trend. You don't, but you have to have decent flooring and take care of any broken stuff. And the market's going to tell you right away if you got it wrong. You can tell by the volume of showings. If you're not getting very many showings, it's not the right price. Buyers are finding other choices to grab. If you're getting showings but no offers, you're just a tiny bit off. If you're getting offers, you're right there, stay there. It's just a matter of finding the right person to buy the house. And according to the National Association of Realtors, if you price a home too high and slowly walk the price down, you're going to net less money than coming out of the gate at the right price. But for some people, it takes time to figure that out. So is it Zillow that picks the price? No. In fact, I look at these automatic valuations all the time, and it's pretty obvious to me they kind of overprice these homes. They over anticipate what the home is worth at this point. And you need somebody to help you price it what I call realistically versus optimistically. That doesn't mean remodel. I had one a couple years back in Monument. It was built in the 80s. When I first met with the seller, they had inherited the home. It definitely was what I call an 80s time warp. The carpet was that pinkish mauve color, which was really on trend at the time, but not now. And it was worn. The kitchen was not updated. They said, what do we do? Even the sinks in the bathroom were seashell shaped, and they were painted pink. So I gave them a few tips, just some minor things that they could do to get the house ready for sale. We had a huge crowd at the open house. 82 people came through. We ended up presenting 6 offers, and it sold for 75,000 over asking price. That was after the rates went up. So it's all about positioning, pricing, and getting good pictures to create demand. So if you are thinking of making a move, this is part of what we do is we help home sellers actually price their home, what I call realistically versus optimistically. And I know what appraisers do, right? Appraisers basically are licensed people that work for the lender to substantiate that their buyer is paying a fair price for the home and to verify that the home meets the loan guidelines. But that doesn't necessarily mean the home is going to sell for the appraised amount. I've seen them off by as much as 400,000 on the higher end homes sometimes. But at the end of the day, what they do is they look at recent historic sales. They compare apples to apples, meaning they would compare a two-story with a finished basement against a two-story with a finished basement to figure out what the quote value is. They also have the loan approval people, which are called underwriters, looking over their shoulder to make sure that, hey, why didn't you pick that one? So they have a bit of oversight for what they do. But at the end of the day, they have to substantiate it so the buyer can get their loan. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's what the market's going to bear. And the way you create demand is by pricing it what I call very, very realistically to get the most money. Do not expect a bidding war. That really doesn't happen that often anymore. It could if you price it right, but you have to make sure that you position the home to be the best deal on the market in that price range at that time. And we can help people do that. It's what we do week in and week out. So if you are thinking of making a move and you'd like to get a free in-home consultation on what to do, what not to do to get your house ready for sale, give us a call at 719-301-3900. We'll give you a realistic idea what your home will sell for and how much you'll put in your pocket. It's a free service and you're never obligated to sell. Richard?
So, Barb, I am at 1040. And you actually talked a little bit about not expecting a bidding war and a little bit of that. Am I just doing the Richard part on page 7, or should I just go ahead and skip ahead to where we're going to the hot new listings?
Go ahead to hot new listings because we
All
only
right.
have 2 minutes. So
Yep. I'll count us
sorry,
down.
talking too much.
3, 2, 1. You're listening to Barb Schlinker on Your Real Estate Voice. That's the name of the program. And Barb is the host of the program as well. If you're thinking of selling your home and you want to get the most amount of money, call Barb 719-301-3900 or visit barbhasthebuyers.com. Barb, you've got some hot new listings this week. Tell us about them.
Oh, I'm excited. I have this adorable cabin that's on 3 lots up and divide with gorgeous views, and the inside is in perfect condition, priced at $399,900. We have a really, really cute rancher. Actually, it's a bi-level with gleaming hardwood floors in great shape, in Briargate in the mid-4s. We have a beautiful home out in Peyton. It's over 4,000 square feet, gorgeous 3 car garage, and that's priced at $599,000. We have a spectacular rancher with a 3-car garage and a finished basement on Declaration Drive in the low 5s. We have an adorable house on East Willamette on the west side. Everybody loves the west side. Low 4s for that home that's been completely remodeled. We have a stunning home on Royal Troon down in Pueblo in a very popular neighborhood called Walking Stick. They have a community park and recreation center and all that. We have a beautiful 2-story with a 3-car garage that backs to open space in pristine condition on Beckham Street. And I'm getting house envy on this one, 16145 Open Sky, gorgeous home on 4 acres, custom home. Oh wow, there's just so many things to say about it, but it really is beautiful, priced at $2.1 million. And then we have lots of homes coming up very soon, 2 in the Broadmoor, 1 in Rock Rimmon on War Eagle, and a really cool home in Woodland Park, just off Highway 24 with great views. So if you want to find out about our sneak peek homes, go to barbhasthebuyers.com or give us a call at 719-301-3900. Richard?
You've been listening to Your Real Estate Voice. Barb Schlinker is the host of the program, and she can be your real estate voice. Call her at 719-301-3900 or visit barbhasthebuyers.com. Barb, always great talking with you. Have a great week. We'll talk next weekend.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
All right. There we go.
That was a nice little, and she can be your real estate voice. That was cute.
Well, because I'm like, I mean, you are just by virtue of the show, your real estate voice, but I have been thinking about that. Don't you really, after all of this, want her to be your real estate voice?
Pretty
I
cool.
certainly hope so. I mean, I think so. All right. Let's see here. Colorado housing prices get cheaper 2025. Can a house